Gigi Kusuma, Untak Surabaya 13222000013. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. In this time, I will give a legal argument related to corruption crimes in the form of gratification as stated in Article 12 of Law Number 20 of 2001 concerning amendment to Law Number 31 of 1999 concerning eradication corruption crimes. The definition of gratification in a broad sense is the provision of money, goods, rebates or discount, commission, interest-free loan, travel ticket, lodging facilities, tourist trip, free medical treatment, and other facilities provided to authorized officials. The gratuities can be received both domestically and abroad by using electronical or non-electronical means. This is interesting for me to observe because in Law Number 20 of 2001, Article 12 has been inserted Article 12A, 12B, and 12C to eliminate the sense of injustice for perpetrators of corruption in terms of the value that being corrupted is relatively small and protect to principle of presumption of innocence. Meanwhile, Article 12 of the Law on the Eradication of Criminal Acts of Corruption contains the following norms: sentenced to life imprisonment or imprisonment for a minimum 4 years and a maximum 20 years, and a minimum fine 200 million rupiah and maximum 1 billion rupiah, where the subject of criminal law related to the offense of receiving gratification or the perpetrator receiving gratification in Article 12 is a civil servant or state administrator who received the gift where the gift is related to his position which contrary to his obligation or duties. The further analysis in Law Number 20 of 2001 has inserted Article 12A, which explains the provisions for imprisonment and fine for perpetrators who receive gratuities whose value is less than 5 million rupiah. Then Article 12B not only explain the provision of evidence for perpetrators who receive gratification with a gratuity value received of more than 10 million rupiah and less than 10 million rupiah, but also mention provisions for imprisonment and fines. However, in my opinion of Article 12B, there is no difference in the substance of the criminal treat for recipient of gratuities worth 10 million rupiah or more with gratification recipient under 10 million rupiah. And the only difference lies in the realm of the process regarding the issue of the burden of proof. The next point that is even more interesting to observe is Article 12C, which contains norms Section 1. The provisions as referred to Article 12B Section 1 is not applicable if the recipient report the gratuity received to the KPK. Section 2. The report as referred to in Section 1 must be submitted by the recipient of the gratification no later than 30 working days from the date the gratification is received. Section 3. KPK within period of no later than 30 working days from the date received the report shall determine that the gratuity can be the property of the recipient or the property of the state. Section 4. Provision regarding to procedure for reporting as referred to Section 2 and determining the status gratification as referred in Section 3 are regulated in the law concerning the KPK. So, every gratuity is not considered a bribe. If the recipient report the gratification he has received to the KPK, then the submission of the report must be doing by the recipient of the gratification no later than 30 working days from the date the gratification is received, as well as the KPK within 30 working days from the date receiving the report. It is obligatory to determine that the gratuity may belong to the recipient or belong to the state. In connection with the provisions of the formulation of Article 12C, it can raise the idea if the receipt of gratuities reported to the KPK is not considered as giving bribes and is seen as a reason for eliminating criminals. So, that substantially this is felt to be odd because as if the characteristic of the third law or the characteristic of criminal depends on the presence or absence of a procedural administrative report. Although Article 12C was established with positive aims and objectives, in fact the provision of the article could be potentially obstruct the government effort to eradicate corruption, because Article 12C can be used as shield for civil servants who receive gratification as a reason to take revoke, which ends in the inability to be punished for the civil servant, even though the crime of receiving gratification has actually occurred in the real terms. Therefore, reporting the receipt of gratuities to the KPK, which seem to be the reason for the abolition of criminal charge, must be assessed fairly, rationally, and properly. Moreover, in determining the status of gratification is regulated in Law Number 30 of 2002 concerning the KPK. It must be applied very carefully. Thank you.